Have you ever been in a place where nothing is wrong enough to leave, but nothing is right enough to stay? That's where I lived for a while. In the space between certainty and doubt, in the silence between his words. After that afternoon, the missed call, the hollow message, I began to see things differently. Not dramatically, not obsessively, just honestly. It was like adjusting a lens. Everything I had once blurred for the sake of peace slowly came into focus. He stopped asking questions. Not big ones, just the small ones. He no longer asked how my day was, only if I'd eaten, or if I'd locked the door. Practical questions. Efficient ones. The kind that kept life moving without needing connection. When I spoke, he listened just enough to respond, but not enough to understand. I caught myself repeating stories, and that's how I really knew something was wrong. Time felt different around him. He was always busy now. Meetings ran late. Calls were taken in other rooms. Errands took longer than they should. His explanations sounded rehearsed, like he'd practiced them in advance. I didn't accuse him. I just adjusted. I started making dinner later. I stayed up longer. I learned how to fall asleep alone while he scrolled beside me, his phone glowing softly in the dark like a second presence between us. Sometimes, I wondered who he was talking to. But more often, I wondered why he no longer talked to me. One evening, we sat across from each other at the table, half-eaten plates separating us. "You're quiet," he said. I looked up and smiled. "I'm just tired." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. I started to notice how carefully he protected his phone. It never left his side, not even when he showered. His screen locked instantly whenever I walked past. His laughter had become private, guarded, something we no longer shared. Once, without thinking, I reached for his phone when it buzzed. He reacted immediately. Don't, not angry, just firm. Like a boundary had been crossed. He apologized right after, said he was stressed, that work was overwhelming. I just nodded, because nodding had become my reflex. I started waking up earlier than him. There was something grounding about watching him sleep, his face unguarded, familiar, almost innocent. I searched for signs of guilt, of distance, of anything that could explain the growing emptiness between us. But sleep is honest in a way waking life never is, and he just looked peaceful. That hurt more than any suspicion ever could. My friends noticed before I even admitted anything to myself. "You seem quieter," one of them said gently. "Are you okay?" I smiled again. I was getting good at that. "Just busy," I said. Busy protecting a love that no longer protected me. The second receipt appeared a week later. Different restaurant, same city, same neat circle around the date. I didn't confront him this time. I just sat on the edge of the bed, the receipt in my hand, and let the truth sit with me. Not accusations, not conclusions, just awareness. Something was happening, and it didn't include me. That night, when he kissed me, it felt unfamiliar. Not wrong, just disconnected. I realized then that betrayal doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, it arrives gently, politely, in little pieces that you talk yourself out of naming. So I started keeping things to myself. My thoughts, my feelings, my observations. Not out of secrecy, but out of self-preservation. For the first time, I wasn't managing his emotions. I was listening to my own. There was a moment, small, almost insignificant, that changed everything. We were standing in the kitchen. He was typing on his phone, smiling faintly to himself. "Who's that?" I asked. He didn't look up. No one. That word, no one, landed so heavily between us. I realized then how often that single word had replaced honesty in our home. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in the dark, wide awake, feeling something unfamiliar settle into my chest. It wasn't heartbreak, it was clarity, the kind that doesn't demand action, only attention. I still loved him. But love was no longer enough to silence my intuition. And somewhere, quietly, without any ceremony, I began to prepare myself. Not to confront him, not to leave, but to see the truth, whatever it was, clearly. I didn't know how this would end. I only knew this: the silence between us was no longer empty. It was full of answers waiting to be uncovered. The story continues. For the full journey, watch the next episode on Berries Inc. Thanks for listening.